Hi everyone, Toby Danilchuk from 39 Celsius Web Marketing Consulting, and in this short video, this is going to be an SEO video post, and in particular it's about how to update old content on your site to get an SEO boost, increase traffic, increase clicks and brand exposure without having to go and create new content, updating old and existing content. So if you've got content that's been sitting on your site for a while and it needs to be updated, this is the post for you. So keep in mind that at the core of SEO and a good SEO strategy is quality content. So if you are producing quality content, meaning delivering value to the searcher and answering their questions or providing the information they are searching for, and you're doing that better than anyone else, then the rest of the pieces should fall into place. But specifically in this post, I'm going to cover the benefits of updating this content and show you what happens when you update old content. And I'm going to walk you through 7 or more steps about what you should do and how to update this content and how to identify which pages. And then at the end, finally, one step or one recommendation, if you will, about something that you should not do. So first, why should you update old content? Well, the most important reason, or one of the most important reasons, is that creating new content is much more resource intensive. If you have this existing content on your site that's several years old or even a year old perhaps, going back and updating that is much easier, takes less time and money, and likely you're going to get a boost immediately from it versus creating new content, which you should do anyway, but creating new content takes a long time to get SEO traction. And now that this content has been updated, you can repurpose it again through social media, you can send it out in your email newsletters. So there's a lot of benefits about why you should update old content. So how does updating old content help with SEO? Well, first, it helps the page to stay relevant. Is the topic outdated? Or perhaps the on-page SEO is outdated? The last thing Google wants to do is serve content to a user with content that's outdated and no longer applies. Updating old content as well can increase the number of keywords or the topics that you gain exposure to as well. So these topics change and there's new questions or issues surrounding a particular keyword or topic. This allows you to include that. And updating old content helps you identify new questions that people have that you can answer. The questions people have about a particular topic are constantly changing. Google gives you hints to what these are, and in addition to that, you have additional opportunities to rank in different parts of the page. So not just having your page show up in the normal organic listings, but now you could show in a featured snippet if you're answering questions, and I'll go into that shortly. But most importantly, updating old content will give you a bump in rankings. It'll get your brand back into the search results where it should be, more brand exposure, more impressions, more clicks. So here are 2 examples of 2 pages that we updated recently that were doing very well back in the day. These pages are probably 5 to 6 years old, and we ended up seeing exponential increases in impressions and clicks after updating this content. So updating the content can happen over and over. As a matter of fact, we've had several posts that have ranked on the first page of Google for over 10 years, and every year or so we update the content. We just keep updating it. So if you go and look at that post, you'll see comments that go back 10 years ago on that post. So this really has legs, and there's a lot of opportunity for you to stay relevant. So let's transition into how do you update old content. Well, the first step is to identify which content you should update first. And one of the ways you can do that is go into Google Search Console, click on the Pages section, and look at all those pages, go back 16 months or so, and look at those pages where the chart in impressions and clicks all of a sudden drops off. Maybe there was an algorithm update, and find those pages where that has happened. From there, you want to prioritize based on what topics were the most economically valuable for you. Which ones can bring the most value? And prioritize going after those pages that are going to bring you the most sales or the most exposure. So that's step one. Identify which pages to go after first and prioritize them based on economic value. Step two is to work on improving the elements that you can that are going to impact your click-through rate from a Google search results page to your website. So one of those areas has to do with the date on your post. Now, not everybody has the date that that post was originally published showing in the search results of Google. Not everybody enables that. If you do, it can be beneficial to have it show, but if you do, and that content is very old, you're going to drop in the rankings because people are not going to want to click on something that's 5 years old or 2 years old or 3 years old if everybody else's content on the first page is new. So you have a couple options. Either hide that or leave it in but update the date that it was published to what the time frame is now after you've made the updates. So next, consider updating the title tags and the meta descriptions as well. Go through and review those. Make sure that they're well written. Ensure that the most important keyword is near the front of the title tag and the meta description. Google will bold these keywords when somebody uses them in a search. And if your title tag and meta description have that in them, then they will highlight in the search results page that your title tag and meta description have those keywords. So it draws attention to it. Most importantly, you want to include things like a call to action. You want the user's most important benefits in that text as well. So the calls to action you can include in there are click here to learn more, read more, find out more. You can come up with quite a few others, but it's important to tell the reader what to do next. Remember, the Google search results page is free advertising for you. So treat it like that and write solid, user-oriented, beneficial, direct response copy for your title tag and your meta description. Step three, improve the readability and the grammar and spelling on these posts. It should have never been posted with grammar and spelling issues, but go back and check again and make sure that there are no glaring issues, right? So you can use a tool like Grammarly to go in and check things and help you tighten up the writing. Make sure you're not using industry jargon and acronyms, things that people are not going to understand, certain abbreviations. Make sure that whoever your end user is, your target customer avatar, understands what you're writing. The best writing is something where people do not have to pause when they're reading what you're saying. You want them to start at the top of the article and go all the way to the bottom like a slippery slope. And if you're using terms and definitions or abbreviations or whatnot that people have to stop and think about or look up, then you've broken that process. You want the reading for them to be smooth and easy. So step 4 has to do with the on-page SEO for that particular content piece. So one of the first things you want to do is look at your internal linking from that page or from other pages into that page on your site. You want to make sure there's no broken links. And now that you've updated this content with new topics and whatnot, and perhaps your site's grown anyway, find other pages that you can link to from that page. And not only that, find other pages on your site where it makes sense to link back to that page. Remember, the decision about where you link to internally on your site or from other pages into that page is based on, is this going to add value to the user? Will they find benefit if I provide a link over here? You don't want to do it to try to game the system or whatnot. Always come at it from the perspective of delivering value to the user. Of course, on the topic of keywords and whatnot, make sure that your keywords, the most important keywords, are used in the beginning and mentioned in a natural way throughout the article. Google's pretty good at figuring out what the topics are, but whatever that primary keyword is or keywords that you've used in the title tag and the meta description need to appear in the first paragraph and then throughout the post, naturally sounding. You never want to artificially stuff those keywords in. Because when a search engine comes to your page, right, all they see is code, and one of the first things they read is the title tag. Well, here's a keyword. Then they read the meta description. Here's that same keyword. Okay, I'm starting to get the idea what this is about. Then they get to the body section of your HTML code and they start reading the post. Here's an H1 tag. There's that keyword again. And now I'm reading through the text. The bot is reading through the text and they're seeing related phrases and keywords around that. Now they have a pretty good idea of what the content is about. For images, make sure you have some images and infographics. The images should all have alt tags with keywords around them describing what that image is about. The content around those images, the paragraph and the sentences around it, will help Google understand what that image is about as well. So alt text, where it's placed on the page, and the content around it. And then also naming the file with SEO in mind and keywords. You don't want to do this excessively, but you know, instead of naming the image file 3485.jpg, name it this is a cat.jpg if it's a cat. If you don't have video content on this page, perhaps consider adding and embedding a YouTube video or another video into the page where it's relevant. Video can be a very important SEO signal because it keeps time on site for the user ends up being much higher. So when I look at pages that have video embedded, for example, on our own site, the average time on site on a lengthy post that I might do without a video might be, I don't know, a minute and a half, 2 minutes. When I embed a video on it, it's 3 or 4x that amount of time, and those pages end up ranking better typically than just text pages with images. So if you're in a really highly competitive space and you want to bump, consider putting and embedding a YouTube video on your site. Not only that, you get the secondary benefit if you optimize the video of showing up on YouTube and people finding it there as well, which, as you perhaps know, YouTube is the second largest search engine. Step 5 has to do with refining and expanding the keywords and the topics that you cover in the article. So, in the old days, you could kind of game Google with keywords, or at least keywords were the way in which Google could identify and understand what your topic was about. And if you go really far back, the more of those keywords on the page you had, the better it did. Okay, that ship sailed a long time ago. That's no longer possible. Google's far more sophisticated with AI and machine learning, and they are able to figure out what people really want in terms of the content for that query. And are you answering the question or providing thoroughly an answer to what they are searching for? And that becomes really important, because if somebody, you may have sections of that content that are really helpful and beneficial, but perhaps maybe you don't go in as much depth, if you will, or you don't cover the topic as thoroughly, then your page probably isn't going to do as well, or at least it's not going to rank for as many different terms. You have the opportunity here to rank for not just the term you want, but many other spin-offs or related keyword phrases. So what you can do is go in and look at the top pages that are ranking, evaluate that content. How long is it? What are the topics they're covering? Do they have infographics? Are they expanding out beyond the original topic? What does that look like? How thoroughly are they answering it? So it's kind of an anecdotal way to figure out, okay, we're a little thin in this area. Let's address that a little more and build out that content. And again, coming from the perspective of delivering value first to the searcher and search engines second. You can also use keyword tools such as the Keyword Planner in Google Ads to help you uncover related phrases. You can use Google Trends to help uncover phrases that are perhaps what they call breakout phases or related topics and whatnot, to help you get a more complete picture about what everything that post or page should be covering. And when you go to Google and you do a search to see who's ranking at the top, if you scroll down to the bottom, at the bottom of a Google search results page, there's often suggested terms or phrases that people are also searching for. Those are all hints Google's giving you right there in the search results. So leverage that content in the search results pages to help you develop better content. Step 6, I talked about this a little bit earlier, but what other content can you add? I talked about adding videos perhaps, but can you add tables or graphs or charts or infographics? What can you do to that page to help deliver more value? Not everybody wants to read content. Some people want to watch a video. Some people want to take a look at the data that you have on that page in a chart or a table. So provide multiple types of content where it makes sense to elaborate on textual content. And finally, step 7 is add schema markup where appropriate on your page. Now, I'm talking primarily about FAQ schema markup and video markup. If you end up adding a video on your page, you want to make sure that you mark up your video content in addition to any FAQ content. Now, with FAQ schema, you have the ability to show at the top of the search results page in the, you could call it the 0 position, ahead of the organic traditional results in what is called a featured snippet. So if somebody has a question like, can mortgage brokers advertise on Facebook? If you have FAQ schema and it's visible on the page and you have what's called the JSON code markup added to that page as well, you have the potential to show at the top of that page. So it's another place for you to get your brand in a Google search results page. And if you don't know if your page already has schema and you're just not that familiar with it, you can take the page URL and use Google's rich results testing tool. You can drop your URL in there and it'll tell you what schema your page already has on it. Or conversely, you can take a competitor's URL and drop it in there and see what schema they have or that they don't have. But I do highly recommend adding 2 to 3 FAQs to your page, and that content needs to not only be visible to the user on that page, but you have to add that special JSON markup code, the schema, into the head section of that page. So how do you identify which questions then? Well, they could be questions that you just know people naturally have. You can add those as well. But when you go back to Google and you type in your main keyword, in the search results page, if you scroll down, it is very common that Google has a section near the top or even at the bottom sometimes that says people also ask, and it'll list 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different questions. So right there, Google's telling you the most common questions that people are searching for related to this topic. Those are great ideas to turn into FAQs, 2 or 3 of them, answer them and put them on your site. Now, the answers to those questions can be as long as they need to be. Typically, it's 2 to 3 sentences or perhaps a little longer or shorter. Just answer the question thoroughly. But you can also get a sense for how long the answers need to be as well by looking at other queries and are people already showing for this? Can I elaborate and answer this question any better? So those are all things to consider. And my last tip here is just a pro tip on what you should not do. I've talked a lot about what you should do. This is just a recommendation, of course. Whatever you do, do not change the URL of the page you are updating. If you do that, you'll wipe out all the SEO equity that page has gotten. So when, moving forward, when you're creating new content, think about evergreen URLs. So if you're writing a top 10 list, don't put in the URL top 10 tips in 2018 unless you know that you're not ever going to update that content again, because now when you go back and update it, the URL says 2018 and now it's 2021, and in the search results you can see the URL in the Google search results and it says 2018 and people might skip over it and whatnot. So that's a small thing to think about, the evergreen type of URL structure and the words in it you should use. Again, if it's a top tip, just name it top tips for whatever, but just don't put a date in it if you plan on updating this regularly. But as I said, do not ever change the URL of that page. And that's it. So if any of this was valuable for you, give me a like or a comment on the video. I would greatly appreciate it, or share it with a friend. And of course, if you do have questions about SEO or updating content, drop them in the comments and I will answer them. And until next time, we'll see you on the web.